Hey guys, welcome back to another podcast. I go by the name Destiny. Welcome back to the guys who were here with me yesterday, and welcome back if you're new. My name is Destiny. And just in case anyone didn't know, I covered the topic of bullying yesterday, and today we are now going to talk about setting boundaries, because boundaries are so important. And I literally had to take some notes because I just think I need something to help boost my knowledge, but they are definitely things that are relevant to the conversation today. So before we get started, I just want to let you guys know that this podcast is going to be a pretty long one. So please grab your snacks, get water, get drinks, popcorn if you must, and sit back and relax and enjoy. Okay, so today we're going to be talking about boundaries, which is very fucking important, and I think that you need to learn either now or today how to set fucking boundaries. Boundaries is something that took me a while to implement in my life. I wasn't very keen on knowing what boundaries were. Those were not the terms that I used in my vernacular growing up, so I never understood what boundaries were. I never understood, how important they were, and, how to adapt to them, and when it's mainly important to set boundaries, I just used to, exude. I just used to just be someone who was very open to allowing everyone in my life. So the first thing that we are going to talk about is just understanding when to put boundaries in place, and knowing how to put boundaries in place. So the first thing is that when you do set boundaries, you need to set clear boundaries. Don't just set boundaries and allow people to overstep them. Set clear boundaries, be very precise, be concise with it, really set clear boundaries and understand your boundaries too. Don't just set boundaries and expect everyone else to understand it. You need to set boundaries so that you understand why you're setting those boundaries and what are the reasons because of that. You need to be able to adapt to setting your own boundaries and understanding the importance of why you're setting those boundaries. And if you do set boundaries, make sure they're not rigid, make sure they're not all over the place, and you're also getting lost in your own confinement because you've had someone disrespect you and now you don't know which boundaries to put in place to prevent that. So to first start off, I'm going to start off with my own personal experience because I think that's important. So for me, I went through a phase of people pleasing back in 2022 when I was fairly still new to the boundaries game. I was someone who basically sought external validation and was someone who always wanted an approval of somebody before I could go and make that change for myself. So that means my own validation wasn't enough. I needed someone to tell me, yep, you're doing well done, I'm proud of you, you should be proud of yourself. I always needed someone to validate me before I could do it myself. It felt like my own piece of validation and advice wasn't enough. So I started to do that. And so then I guess when I didn't implement no boundaries in my life, I felt as if I was constantly living up to a standard that people would place on me all the time, and I wasn't precise about what I really wanted and how I wanted to be treated. I just allowed everyone to disrespect me, be rude to me, make me live up to their standards, and I would dim my own light just to meet their standards and their expectations. And I wasn't happy. I was just always wanting external validation. I wasn't helping myself. So this is why I'm saying how this is important, because when you do set boundaries, you need to set boundaries that are set in stone and that you don't just waiver to anybody. I remember a time when I was at home and just watching TV, minding my business, and something happened on that day. I'm not going to go into full detail because I don't want to name names, but someone came home and I felt so disrespected. I felt so bad about myself. I felt like I was being called things that weren't even true, and it was just like I just felt like I was constantly being watched, and I just I don't know how to like fully explain it, but like you need to understand how important it is to set boundaries. Like boundaries are something that at the end of the day it protects your mental health. When you set clear boundaries, you're directly stating that these are my needs and these are the things that you like. It's almost like a checklist. Like you are making sure that people sort of abide to your needs, and they understand what they can and can't do. So it's basically like a barrier of things that they can't go over. For me personally, I have set strong hardcore boundaries, and I've made sure that when I set those boundaries, people are not crossing them. And one thing that you need to understand when you set boundaries as well is that it doesn't matter what situation you're in, it doesn't matter the circumstance. If you feel like you are not being respected, and I say this with chest because I know what it feels like to be constantly fucked over because I've had that experience for myself. But if you feel like you are constantly like a doormat to people just step all over you, they rub their foot all over you, they don't care about you, they disrespect you, please, 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 I ask of this very fucking nicely that you cut them out of your life. Like those type of people are not worth your energy and your mental, like it's just not worth the capacity of your mental health. These people will drain you, and it gets to the point where when they see that you are now becoming like you're not taking it anymore, they will start to find ways to manipulate you and gaslight you and make you feel crazy when you try to hold them accountable. That is a form of manipulation. That is a form of toxic emotional abuse. Do not fucking allow people to do that to you. You will feel so mentally drained and constantly questioning yourself and second guessing yourself. That is a form of manipulation. A physical form of manipulation, because your body is now telling you, hey, now I've caught on to your manipulation and your gaslighting. That will automatically mean that, you, at this point, it's just become unbearable, you start to feel invalidated, you start to feel like your mental health is being a detriment to your life, like you feel so ruined, you don't know how to handle it anymore. So that's also a thing. And to add on, it doesn't matter who you're setting these boundaries, like set them to family members too. I have had to do that myself too, I'll be completely fucking honest. I've had to set boundaries because I feel like I have been emotionally rejected for such a long period of my life, and there'll be things that I've said to people and it would be used against me and my words will be taken out of context. And at this point, I think the boundary that I have now created is to not die on the hill for people. If people want to refuse to hear you and understand you and take into consideration that you are upset and you do feel affected by things that they say or do, if they refuse to understand you and come to a common ground with you and see you at surface level, then you need to cut those people out of your life. There's no point wasting your time and your energy in people who lack who don't have any emotional security. You need to be with someone who has emotional security, people who understand their self-worth, their self-respect, people who are emotionally intelligent, inside and fucking out. But boundaries are so important, guys. Please listen to this. when you do allow people to overstep your boundaries, not only are you disrespecting yourself, but you are violating your own physical safety. Like, because it will get to the point where they will physically do anything to not see you in their life again. And that's a form of manipulation. There will become a time in a relationship or in any circumstance where unhealthy boundaries become very abusive. You know, you become very hyper dependent. So you want people to, protect you because you couldn't protect yourself. And, it also becomes to a point where the pattern may repeat, essentially, either if in family situations, relationships, and these can be abusive, physical, sexually, emotionally. Like, those are just violations of a boundary that should not be crossed, period. Another boundary that I think is important is being able to say no, and having people accept when someone says no. If someone tells me, oh, I think we should go out, I'm going to go with a bunch of friends, we're going to go to a night out in a bar, in Islington, and I thought you could come over. The first thing that you say, if you're not comfortable with whoever is going with the group, or if you're not comfortable with going alone, like in terms of going with, going with the people, you tell them no. This is my regimen, because I think that people tend to get very intimidated when you say no. I've had experiences where I've said no and people have physically gotten upset with me because I did not go with what they wanted me to. I didn't go with what they abided me to go with, if that makes sense. Being able to say no is so important. Do not let people, when people ask you things, don't allow them to feel like they can sort of tailor you. If you say no, you say no. Don't let people take your no as a advantage for them to then come and start asking you the 5 W's and asking you why you don't want to do it and asking you what's the issue, and them just getting defensive because you said no. Saying no is so important, guys. Like, you need to learn how to fucking say no, because at the end of the day, you protect yourself, you protect your energy, you protect your mental health, you protect your peace, and not everything needs to be agreed to. Not everything, you don't have to say yes to everything. You need to be able to communicate clearly, both wants and needs. It doesn't matter what it is. If you feel disrespected, you need to communicate exactly why you feel disrespected. You need to explain into detail and depth and make sure that person is listening, actively listening, and taking into consideration what you're saying. There is no point in you clearly communicating your needs to somebody who doesn't even know themselves, because I've been in situations myself where I have told people how I feel, and not only have they, I've had situations where they would, what's the word I'm looking for? I would be talking to them and they would find a reason to not listen to what I'm saying, or they will create a facade where they bring in things that don't relate to the topic, or, try and gaslight me and make me feel crazy for talking about what I'm talking about. And in those situations, what I want you guys to understand is, at the end of the day, like, manipulation is an emotional abuse, period, the end. Like, if someone manipulates you emotionally and they can't admit that, and they keep making you feel crazy and making you second guess yourself constantly, to where then you develop generalized anxiety disorder, you develop overthinking, you develop paranoia, you develop everything under the sun because of their emotional form of manipulation and their emotional abuse, then I'm sorry, those people are not right for you. But another thing is honouring and respecting your needs and the needs of others. So what I mean by that is, it's taking account of your own needs and also having a clear, concise consideration of other people's needs. Don't just think about your own and scrap other people's, is basically what I'm saying. Like, honor and respect. If someone is telling you their needs about what they feel or something that you've done, you come to them with a playing field and say, hey, I'm sorry for what I did, or, you know, you sort of talk it out and communicate where things went wrong so then you can develop and grow. Another thing is respecting others' values, beliefs and opinions. Even if it's different from your own, like, please just respect what people say to you. It doesn't matter whether you disagree or agree. It doesn't matter whether you have, you know, it doesn't matter what it is. Like, just respect other people's values, beliefs and opinions. Even if you don't agree, even if it's political, ethical, you know, a general belief or things that they just think, please respect that. This is another important one. So you need to feel free to disclose and share information where it's appropriate. So that means if something happens to you, you only disclose the information to the appropriate context. So, for example, if a situation happened and I wanted to compare that situation to another narrative that happened that is kind of similar, that's where I would disclose this. That's where I would disclose the information. So let's say I went up to somebody and said, hey, you know, I'm being manipulated, and I have to, and they say, oh, like, give me an example of a time when you felt manipulated. You wouldn't bring up a time of when you were gaslighted, because gaslighting and manipulation are two different things. You will bring up another time when you were manipulated, but it was similar to manipulation. So they made you feel crazy. That's a form of manipulation. It's not exactly manipulation, but it is a form of manipulation. Manipulation can be looked at in so many different ways. But that is an example of where you disclose and share information that's appropriate. You don't bring up another topic that's not relevant, because it won't make sense. What else? When you make boundaries, please keep them simple. Don't overload. Don't set boundaries and overcomplicate them. Make them very clear. Start off very small. Think of things that are easy to remember and easy to put in place. For example, not tolerating disrespect, saying no, you know, just, you know what I mean? Like, putting your guard up, essentially. You need to practice. Practicing to set boundaries are important. Don't set boundaries and then be nervous to use them onto people. Don't be nervous to implement them. You need to understand and write out what you want to say beforehand and practice stating out a boundary in the mirror. So look in the mirror and just, you know, come up with anything. It doesn't have to be super complicated. It can be very simple. So long as you know that those boundaries are going to be implemented and you're going to use them, that's the only thing that matters. So a boundary essentially is a sign in your life, and those signs you can consider if that's quote unquote crossing the line. So that could be on your beliefs, your values, your culture, customs, your family traditions, etc. Okay, this is also another important one. Sorry, I took notes and I'm also using some other things to help me sort of boost my memory. But so this is also another important one. If you're in a situation, say for example you're in a group setting and you are among an age range of 20 to 25-year-olds, so people who are in your age group. I'm 20, so it makes sense for me to be in a group of to be in a group setting of people who are in my age range. So say for example we are sitting in a group okay? And, you're having a conversation, and eventually the conversation changes, and instead of them talking about things that are productive, relevant to your life, or, goals, things that, you dream of doing in 5 years, etc. Instead of them talking about that, if the conversation turns into gossip about other people that you may be cool with, or may not know exactly who they are, please, please, please excuse yourself from that room. Do not sit and entertain gossip. There's been so many instances in my life where I've sat in a room with a group of people, and they would turn the conversation into gossip. They would start talking about other people. They would come back from certain places and start immediately telling me things that are no longer to do with me, or things that are outside of my control, and start telling me things about other people, and try to make me entertain it. Remove yourself from the room, period. Don't even say anything. Keep quiet and walk out of that room. You do not need people who are going to come into your life, have a conversation with you, and then turn it into gossip by talking about other people. And then in the end, they want to come back and act like nothing happened, for one. Two, they're going to use that against you. Three, they're going to gaslight you and make you feel crazy when, you put your opinion or your belief in that conversation. I remember a conversation broke out one time, and it was a gossip. Mind you, this is when I didn't have boundaries, so I didn't understand how important it was to remove yourself from a room when someone is gossiping about you. So I was in a room and a conversation broke out. Someone was talking about somebody, I'm not going to say names, and I then stated my opinion of what I think of that person. It wasn't something that was factual. I just stated my opinion on what I believe about that person. And then this, after a while, the same person that was talking to me about this person that I entertained came back to me and said, hey, X, Y, and Z wants you. And I said, why? They said, oh, because you've been talking about her. And I was just like, but I did not rise the conversation, I stated my opinion, but that doesn't mean I believe it. And this whole time, this specific thing that I said was used against me in every trial and tribulation. Like, every situation that happened, every argument that occurred, that was the first thing people would bring up, was, oh, but you said this. And then when you say, oh, but I meant it like this, they will then turn around and manipulate you. Then they will gaslight you. Then they will make you feel crazy. Then you will question your whole life. And that's when you fall into depression. Please understand. Another thing is, let's see. Oh, this is another important thing. It doesn't have to be relationship-wise, it could just be in general. Family members, friends, it doesn't matter. Or even relationships too. When you're in a relationship, or actually, in fact, I can recall a time, I was in a relationship with a girl one time, sometime last year. And I broke up with her because my boundaries were being completely disrespected and just not taken into consideration. But I remember my ex was someone who was very sexually active. I think her sex drive was pretty high. Everything was sexting. Everything was just like, she was just very about that sexual life. And I respected it. I understood when you have a sexual attraction to somebody, it does go quite above and beyond. And in those situations, I was telling her I don't feel comfortable. Maybe when we're in person, yes, but not online. And she couldn't understand why I wasn't doing what she wanted me to do. And that was like her setting the standard. And if I didn't follow them, then I was the bad guy. And those were things that were an immediate red flag. I remember I did go to therapy and I did talk to someone about it because I wanted to understand if I was the one that was just crazy for thinking that these were for these were red flags, or was it just something that was a red flag in general? And I broke up with her because I was like, I deserve better. I don't deserve to be in a relationship where someone is asking me to do something and I do go ahead and say no, and then being disrespected and my boundaries are not being taken into consideration. But another thing is that in these situations, relationship or not, if your partner if your partner isn't respecting you emotionally and they're not respecting your boundaries, please break up with these people. They will emotionally abuse you, physically, emotionally, and in other words, sexually. They will do anything under the sun to violate your boundaries, because they have no lack of control of their own physical boundaries. But another thing that I wanted to mention before I came to that topic was a boundary that's also very important is remembering that when people borrow your things, family, relationship status, it doesn't matter what it is, please make sure that they ask permission before taking your things. I've had people come into my life and take things from me and not ask. Please make sure people ask. That is a boundary you need to put in place. If people do not follow basic boundaries of permission, that is a form of they don't care about you, period. Like, if they really cared about you and if they really cared about your belongings and your, valuable items or things that you hold very close to your heart, they will think twice before taking those things. Asking people for their things is very important. If you do not ask people for their things, you are violating a boundary that they have put in place. Whether they have boundaries or not, that is something that you just don't do, period. What else? So another thing that I think is very important as well is emotional boundaries. So this could include, your feelings, personal details, emotional boundaries. This could be, when they're crossed, when feelings or personal information are disclosed or belittled or or minimized or shared without your permission, that is a form of violation of your boundaries. You should not be in a situation where you're constantly feeling like every information that you disclose is being belittled or minimized. When you share information into people, it should be taken as... It shouldn't even be something that I should have to tell you. It should be a given. You should expect me to come to you as someone that I can confide trust in and tell you my personal issues, whether that be emotionally, physically, personally. Like, it doesn't matter what it is. If you have people in your life that belittle your information and minimize your information and share it without your permission, that is a form of manipulation. They will do everything under the sun to use that against you. Please. I've had situations where I've shared information with people and that information has been taken to other people and used. It's been misconstrued, essentially. It's been violated. There's been times where... I can recall a time, actually, when I went to somebody and I spoke about how I felt. It wasn't specifically me asking to change this specific thing. It was me asking for just basic... I was just telling people how I felt. I wasn't saying that I wanted to get rid of this thing. I wasn't saying that I didn't want this thing. I wasn't saying that I wasn't appreciative of this thing, or I wasn't no longer grateful for this thing. I was just saying how I felt. And this person that I was talking to started to use an excuse under the sun and create a facade so that she could claim herself as innocent and I could look bad. All I did was, in that situation, was explain how I felt and why I felt that way. I went into the conversation civilly. That's the key word. I went into the conversation civilly, and this person decided that I'm just going to create a facade. I'm going to curate an excuse, and I'm going to use that excuse and use that facade that is probably not even true against this person so that I can claim myself as innocent and she can look bad. That is a form of gaslighting. Anybody who creates an innocence to protect themselves and creates a facade to protect themselves and makes you look bad, that is gaslighting. And then when you go to correct the situation on where it went wrong and they tell you no, that wasn't what happened, and they try to, what's the word, guilt trip you and make you feel crazy, that is a form of gaslighting. Period. Like, do not let people do that to you. And it's crazy because in that situation, this conversation that I had got taken to somebody else. And when I tried to correct this person on where she went wrong, she told me, no, you didn't say that. You said X, Y, and Z. And since then, it's like whatever I was trying to say, when I was trying to correct this person, no one was listening to me. I was just treated like complete shit in that whole entire situation. That's why I say, if you're going to share information, be mindful of who you're sharing that information to. Don't just share it because it's a family member, or because it's your mum, or because it's your sister, or because it's your cousin, or because it's your grandma or granddad, or it doesn't matter who the fuck it is. Just be mindful of who you share information to. There's a quote that says, what was it? It was something along the lines of, I don't take my information because I know it's going to be taken to other rooms. Something along those lines. But it was to do with sharing information, personal, it doesn't matter what it is. But I know that if I say how I feel or anything that is about me, I know that conversation is going to be taken into other rooms. So just be mindful. Another thing that I think is also important, sorry, I'm just having some water. Let's see. Oh, this is also important. I think, in my opinion, it's very fucking important. If you feel emotionally uneasy in any situation, or if you start to get like a physical sensation, of like nausea, or your stomach starts to turn, or, you feel just unsettled, this is a sign that a situation has made you uncomfortable. Please remember this. If you feel any of those things that I just mentioned, physical sensation like nausea, your tummy starts to, turn, you start to get sweaty, you start to shake, or, you just start to do basics, like, just if you start to show signs of uncomfortability, period, it doesn't matter what it is, remove yourself from that situation. There is no point of being, this is how I look at it, yeah. If you go into any group, the minute you start to feel uncomfortable, you say to them, look, I am uncomfortable and I'm leaving. Don't go into detail to over-explaining and explaining yourself and, trying to prove your point and trying to get them to understand. Just say why you feel uncomfortable and leave. That is it. Do not overly explain. If they ask you why, and try to, like, sort of sugarcoat other reasons into bringing you back into the conversation, just leave. Just walk away. Paying attention to our instincts is also very important, because often our body has a response before our minds when something about a situation feels off or unsafe. So please pay attention to your instincts. If something feels off, energy, emotional energy, physical energy in general, if any energy feels off to you, remove yourself from there, because that's how you know a boundary has been crossed. If you start to feel uncomfortable, and if your instincts, or if your body essentially starts to respond before your mind, please That's also very important. Remove yourself out of situations. This is very important, and I'm going to mention this. So having a healthy boundary put in place is very important because it is a sense of well-being, a sense of self-control and self-esteem throughout your life. If you can't develop boundaries after a few years, or set healthy boundaries after a few years, you are going to have challenges when you reach to an adult. It doesn't matter what fucking age. It doesn't matter when you think you're becoming an adult. You are going to have emotional instability because you haven't set barriers in your life to protect yourself from emotional discomfort, emotional distress, you just haven't protected yourself from anything that could, send you into a spiral. So, these setting boundaries has to start from early. I started setting boundaries at the age of 18, and I've been doing it for 2 years now. So please, almost 2 years, I would say. I wouldn't say exactly 2 years. I don't think that's accurate or realistic, but it is definitely it is coming to 2 years now that I have been setting boundaries. So another thing that I wanted to get into as well is how setting boundaries has helped me. So setting boundaries for me personally has really helped me. I was someone that struggled and still struggles with my mental health. I've struggled with my mental health for 3 years. Since 2020 into 2022, I struggle with my boundaries. I struggle with my my mental health. And one thing that I think is very important that has helped me alone is just setting boundaries and being able to create a barrier in my life where I am being respected, I am being treated the way that I expect to be treated, I am being, things are being taken into considerations, my words are not being misconstrued, things are just going the way that I want them to go because I've set boundaries. I'm learning to say no. I'm protecting my peace. I'm removing myself out of situations that make me uncomfortable, that make me feel, anxious, whatever it is. So the way that boundaries has helped me is that it's helped me through a lot of stuff, actually. It's made me feel way more happier because I know that regardless of any situations, now that my boundaries are now set in stone, and why I know that, no one can now fuck with me, is because I have boundaries that allow me to determine and to assess a situation that I know is going to overcross my boundaries. If I'm in a situation and I assess that room as an introvert and as someone who is very self-observant, and I see that people in there are not the type of people I want to be around, because it's a part of my boundary, I am going to remove myself from that situation. I am no longer going to keep myself present in that situation. I am going to remove myself and disregard myself until I know it's safe to be in a situation where I feel loved, appreciated, heard, seen, and respected. It's that simple. Emotional wise, boundaries has helped me a lot. I've set boundaries that are set in stone. I don't let nobody, further perpetuate what I'm already dealing with, and I don't let nobody make me feel selfish. Don't let no one make you feel selfish about having boundaries. Being selfish in this life is furtherly more important, because at the end of the day, sometimes you have to be selfish so that people can see that, you don't just, you're not gullible. You don't just abide to anything. But yeah, boundaries has really helped me emotionally. I mean, I'm very set in stone with where I take my information now. I'm still trying to learn to not disclose too much information. I think that's something that is bad about me. I'm very open. I tell people about my life like a book, which I need to stop doing because I've realised that whenever I do that, it gets used against me. And people will find ways to like diminish my lifelong goals, or try and bring up something that I've said and try and invalidate them or whatever. But emotionally it has really helped me. I do believe, and I will continue to believe, that having boundaries for emotional well-being, emotional protection, emotional peace, anything to do with your well-being is so important. In this life, you do not want people to come into your life and think that they can control the narrative of your life. If you get people that come into your life and think that they can control the narrative of your life and think that no matter what you do, they are now in control of your life and they are controlling that character of your life, those are not people that you want to be around, period. You need people that uplift you. You need people that respect you, your well-being and your emotional well-being. You need people that understand you on not just an emotional sense or mental sense, just in general, just understand you generally, understand your needs and wants. You need people that protect your name when you're not around. That's so important. If you're in a room where your name is not protected when you are not around, that's why I said that you need to remove yourself from a situation where gossip starts to enter the conversation. If you're in a room and gossip starts to enter the conversation, imagine what they're saying when you're not around. Which is why I say, make sure you have people that protect your name when you're not in that room. It doesn't matter where you are, what you're doing that day, what plan has entered that day. Make sure that they protect your name in that room, because the last thing that you don't want is people what's the word I'm looking for? Further diminishing your name when you're out of that room and entertaining it. Boundaries has also helped me in a way, because I think like over time, if I did not have these boundaries, I believe I probably would have fell back into depression, if I'm quite honest with you. I think another boundary that I set in place, especially before I went to uni, was I am no longer going to die on the hill for people. This is so important. This is a boundary that is not really very much stated or people don't mention a lot. But if you feel like you have to constantly prove yourself, constantly over-explain yourself, constantly repeat time and time again situations that have occurred by said person or said individual, and they are not taken into, or even trying to take into consideration to, understand where they went wrong and trying to improve it. Let me just make this very clear. If you have people that do that, it doesn't matter what it is, you need to, you just don't die on the hill for them. If they want to misperceive you and, take your conversations to another room and put bad shit on your name and make you look bad, I've come to a place in my life, and I'll make this very clear so that you guys understand how important setting boundaries are and how not dying on the hill for people is so important. I've come to a stage in my life, and I hope this helps you guys and helps you understand how important boundaries are, and helps you understand that you can't die on the hill for everybody sometimes, and you can't keep filling an empty cup you can't just keep filling an empty cup, But one thing that when I've gotten to a place in my life where I am no longer dying on the hill for people. If you want to go and diminish my name and make me look so ridiculously bad and make me look and just spread exaggerated rumors on my behalf from things where there's no realistically there's no evidence to prove the things that you're saying about me and the things that you are making, and the rumors you are spreading about me. There's no evidence. There's no proof. Where are the evidence? And if so, where is the proof that I was behaving in that way? Because realistically, there's no proof. But if you're going to diminish my name, the last thing I'm not going to do is try to save it. You can talk about me. But at the end of the day, so long as I know my intentions and I know my worth and I know the person that I am inside out, that is not going to bother me. I do not feel like I have to go and message or call that person and say, hey, look, just to clear things up. Why do I need to go and do that? If I know myself and I know my intentions and I know what my intent was in that situation, why do I feel the need to go that far? It's that simple. Another thing is I've gotten to a place in my life where I am not going to explain myself more than once. If I explain myself once to you or twice to you, at the end of the day, you decide what you want to do with that information. You decide how you want to take it. You decide how you want to perceive that information. If you want to go and misconstrue it, go the fuck ahead. But I am not going to sit and waste my fucking time on people who are going to make me spiral time and time again and make me repeat myself time and time again because they are refusing to take how I feel or take anything that I tell them into consideration. I've also gotten to a place in my life where I'm no longer proving things to people. I don't think I owe anyone an explanation. I don't think I need to live up to a standard or an expectation. I think I live my life on my timing and I live my life on my own personal timing and I live my life the way I want to live my life. It's that simple. I don't think I need to live my life according to someone else. It's just it just doesn't work like that. I mean, I am not. Why am I pushing myself so far to live my life under someone else's circumstance? It just doesn't work like that. It just, if you are someone that feels like they have to constantly live their life by abiding to somebody else's standards or expectations of you, you have been violated in more ways than I can ever imagine. That's just a form of... They want you to be in a place that they were once in. It's that simple. And I'm not going to go into further detail about that. That's self-explanatory. They just want you to be in a place that they were once in. It's called generational trauma. When someone goes through an experience in their lifetime, or if they go through an experience in their lifetime, they now have a trauma response. So their trauma response is, I need to go and tell people or give them a heads up that, hey, don't do this thing or don't do that thing, or I think you shouldn't do this thing because when I was in that situation, I encountered this, I went through this happened to me. They will try and make you feel like you are going to go through that same certain situation. Do not allow that to fucking happen. People will do anything under the sun to make you feel how they felt, make you go through what they went through, make you believe that you are going to go through those things just because they went through it. Honey, we are in a whole other new century. We are in the 21st century in a new whole generation. We do not think generational anymore, and that's what people need to understand. At least the people who are millennials. But a lot of it is generational trauma. A lot of it is self-inheritance. A lot of it is, self-esteem. They're scared. They're very intimidated by some people's potential, so they will try and advise you. And also another thing, you don't have to take everyone's advice. That's also something that I've come to a place in my life as well. if you feel like the advice that people are giving you isn't enough to fulfill your dreams, or isn't enough that to help you come to a place in your life, don't follow it. You don't have to listen to everyone's advice. There's people have told me advice and I've never listened to it. A lot of it just looked like I was being set standards and expectations. It wasn't really any advice. It was just standards and expectations that they believed that I should follow just to make themselves feel better. And I refuse to follow them. You know, as an autistic person, I think I have been set more expectations and more standards than a normal neurotypical person on a daily. Like, things people say to me, not a lot of it is advice. A lot of it is them setting you standards and expectations and making sure that you abide to what they have set you, essentially. It's almost like a reminder that, hey, remember to do this, or this won't happen, or this might happen, or I won't be happy, or it's just like, fuck all of that, dude. Live your life according to how you want to live your life. Do not try to live your life based on someone else's standards. Do not dim your light to meet someone else's standards or expectations of you. You live your life according to how you want to live your life. Those are also boundaries that I think are also important. Stop living up to expectations and stop living up to people's standards and stop living up to things people have said. You live your life according to how you want to live it. Live it in the way that makes you feel happy. Period. But yeah, just stop dying on the hill for people, guys. It's not worth it. You drain so much energy. You become so mentally unstable. You become emotionally drained. You develop such diminishing, detrimental, dehumanizing, and invalidating disorders, essentially. A lot of people develop really bad anxiety, paranoia, generalized anxiety disorder. There's a lot that fall under the umbrella, and some people are very scared to admit that they have an emotional disorder because of things that people have caused upon them. And like I said in the last podcast about bullying, a lot of the reasons why people develop emotional instability is because they have now developed self-inheritance. Someone else has had trauma and they've now gone and perpetuated it and sprung it onto somebody else. So now that person has developed similar traits because they are at a place that they're not secure in, and they want to go and take that insecurity and throw it onto somebody else. That's the same like mental health. Whatever somebody else goes through, whether it's generational trauma, abuse, trauma, emotional trauma, emotional abuse, physical abuse, sexual abuse, whatever it is, they will try, and it will eventually, if they have done everything under the sun to make you feel how they feel, and you get to a point in your life where the floodgates have now opened, you will develop those traits that they've given you because they've now gone out their way to push those insecurities onto you because of things that they've gone through, that things that they couldn't work on before. So keep that in mind. That's very fucking important. What else? I think that's it actually now. What to do if your boundaries are being overstepped or disrespected. Very important. What I did when I felt like my boundaries were being overstepped and disrespected, I cut them out of my life. It's that simple. Like, you do not need people in your life that are just going to ride all over you like you are not a human being. Like, at the end of the day, you deserve to feel invalidated, period. Just cut them out of your life. Don't even give them no explanation. And stop telling people your business. That's also another one. Like, stop telling people everything. That even goes out to me too, because I need to hear it. Like, stop telling people shit. It's that simple. That's another boundary that needs to be put in place for not just me, but for everybody. Stop telling people your business. If people ask you things, keep the conversation to a minimal. Do not go out of your way and think that you can now start telling them your business, because I can only vouch for you from my own personal experience. They will go and use that against you in the long run when they need clarity and they need some closure. They will use that against you. They will bring up anything that you said to them, because they keep it in their head like a book. They will flip them pages, find anything that is beefy enough to use against you so that people can now expect something of you. I remember something happened one time. I'm not going to say what happened. I'm not trying to bait these people out, but it's something that I will never forget. Something happened, and let's see how I can say this. Something happened, and in my defense, I was trying to de-escalate the situation by apologizing to this person that I quote unquote supposedly hurt, and this person ran off and told somebody else about what I did to them, which was, some of it was not true, and a lot of it was completely taken out of context, and just, they completely missed what I was trying to say. They missed the point, they missed the message, they missed the information that I was trying to say. But what this person did was, they went and told this person about me, about something that I did. Apparently I was causing them stress. I caused a lot of things to rise up. If you can read between the lines, you know exactly what I'm trying to say. And they went and told this person and made an exaggerated rumour on my behalf, only because I was trying to explain to them how I felt. Then this person came to me and started blowing my phone up, telling me how I should be grateful, how I should be appreciative. Not a lot of people have X, Y, and Z. You should count yourself very lucky, and all this extra shit. And I tried to say in my defense that I was just trying to say how I felt. And still this person was going back into the same thing and saying, why don't you want the support? And when I was explaining the situation, I didn't say I didn't want no support. I didn't say anything about that. All I said was, I feel like I don't need support. I didn't say I don't want support. I said I feel like I don't need it. And this person took it as me saying that I did not want support, and how I was essentially not being grateful for what I had, when that did not come out my mouth. And that's why I'm saying to you guys, please be mindful about who you share information to. It doesn't matter if it's information based on how you feel or information based on personal details. Just please don't share anything to anybody, because they will use it against you. Don't share financial shit. Don't share anything that's happening inside your life. Don't share your goals. Don't share none of that shit. If you're going to share it with people that you can confide, trust in. Okay. I think that's all of it now. I think I've covered everything. I told you this is a long podcast, guys. But we are going to stop here. I've been talking for a very long time. Guys, just to make something very clear, I am going to start a podcast very soon. I'm still in the process of branching it out and networking, and I am going to reach out to people for collabs, so please be ready for those. I think a podcast is very good for someone like me who's very passionate, and I have a lot of knowledge about some certain things. But please do tune in tomorrow. Hopefully I can be back on here at the same time, or a bit earlier, depends on how I feel. But please be ready for an actual podcast that will be starting very soon. I'm still in the process of planning it and, coming up with some ideas and putting them into place. But please be prepared. I am in the process of it now. I hope it does come out the way I plan, but please tune in and keep your phones on. I might post an Instagram about when I do start releasing a podcast and when you can tune into them. But yeah, this is it. Thank you for watching. I have been Destiny, and I hope you have a lovely day. And please remember what I said. And also another thing before I go, another boundary that's important is you do not have to do anything you don't want to do. That's just something that I have to say. That's the advice that I would give to anybody in this life. If you do not want to do something, if you're not comfortable doing anything, you do not have to do it. If people want to get upset, walk away. You do not owe them an explanation or a reasoning as to why you don't want to do certain things. If you don't want to do it, you say, I don't want to do that, and you move on. You do not have to do anything. No, you do not have to do anything you don't want to do. It is that simple. Life is too short to chase a false high and chase false positivity. Remember that I said that. Please, I ask of you very fucking nicely to put your well-being first, your happiness first, your peace first. Please. I have been Destiny. Thank you for tuning in, and I'll see you in the next one.